Alright guys, welcome back to another episode on the 71 Cutlass. In the last episode, we got a lot of the metalwork done. We got the firewall put on. We got the floor patch put in. We also did a lot of the metalwork on the inner structure of the inner rockers. And I actually didn't really film an intro before I started working on this. So I had to, if you watched the Blazer episode, I had to swap the Blazer. So the Blazer had to go from the body cart to the rotisserie, and then the Cutlass had to go from the rotisserie to the body cart. So now we can start to do all of the metalwork on the rear. And so to kind of show you guys what I did, so I just ran 4 posts. So I've got one here, and then I've got 2 all the way back there. And I just ran a couple tacks on each side of it and then up into the body. I made sure that the cart was level, and then I also made sure that these square tube were the same length on each side, and then made sure the body was level to the body cart. So I did the same thing back here. These of course are longer ones because they go up to this rear brace up here. And then I have these big bars that go across that I can move, and so I tack those into the place, and that is what holds that square tube up, holding the rear of the body up. So now the goal for this episode is really we're gonna start doing all of the metalwork on the rear of the car. So the front is pretty much completely finished, and it is time to knock out the rear. I'm hoping to have this done in about 2 weeks entirely, and then ready to go back on the frame. So let's look at some of the problematic areas that I see already. So we've got rust all on this inner wheel well. Our outer wheel wells are completely gone, but in order to get to those, we have to cut the quarter off first. And then not only that, we're also having issues with our trunk floor. It is rotted out in a couple different spots, so we're gonna have to do some patches. You can see there's some holes right here, and then also on this side. And then if we walk around to this side, this is where they did that beautiful patch right there, all of that rust here, and then they fiberglassed and foamed all of this. So we're gonna have to fix this quarter, and then we're also gonna have to fix the inner rocker, and then we're having the same issues with rust over here on this side. So there are a lot of little patches that we're gonna have to make. There's really a lot of metalwork that we have to do in the rear of this car. Not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it is gonna be a lot of work.
Bass, and melody.
Okay, so the driver quarter is cut off, and this is very interesting. They actually left the original part of the quarter on. They just welded the other piece right over the top of it. You see how rotted that is? So that is definitely not the way to do this. And then over here, they went and cut the inner brace and then beat it back because they couldn't get the quarter on. So we're gonna have to cut that back and repair that, and then also trim all of these pieces off here so our new quarters will fit up nicely. It's kind of interesting. That's why they had that huge gap right here. They just couldn't get it to fit up because they didn't trim that out of the way. So I'm gonna start to trim all of this up to get this fixed. And then you can see, look at the wheel well. It is just completely rotted all the way around. So we'll start to trim this up and get that ready. And then also kind of fix all of this stuff that's going on over here. Okay, so I made some progress, got the quarter pretty much all the way cut out, everything trimmed off, got the outer wheel well, all of the rust cut off of it. So you can see it is coming along pretty nicely. Also came in here and got all the old pieces cut off here, everything trimmed up and ready to go. I'm gonna have to come in and either replace this piece, do a splice right here, or I'm going to have to build this piece out of metal. So I actually left this inner wheel right here all rotted because I'm going to make a patch for this, and I want to know exactly where this is supposed to be. So I'll make my patch on this, and then I'll cut that out and weld in my new piece. So if you look at that, quarter is pretty much all the way done. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to jump into the trunk, and you can see there's a couple rust spots in here that I'm going to have to start attacking. So I'm gonna do all the big patches first, and then I'm gonna work around and do all the little edges around the trunk. So let's get started. Okay, so just to show you guys what is going on here. So I went underneath with a light, and I pretty much marked all of these spots with tape that need to get cut out. You can see there is a really big one right there. There is a small one right there, a small one right there, and then just a couple little spots that I need to fill. I started on this piece here. I got this cut out, and I actually save all of the pieces that I cut out so I can walk over to my new floor. I pretty much use this metal as a template, and I'll set it on here, trace it out, cut that piece out, and then trim it to fit on the actual car, and then I'll weld it in. So I got a couple patches to make. I figured I'd start with the smallest, easiest one first, and then I'm probably gonna do these two next, and then I will finish with this bigger patch. So I know a lot of people would replace the entire floor on this, but the whole floor isn't rotted out. That's why I'm not replacing it, and there's so much work that has to go into replacing the floor. There's so much bracing that you have to put in, and you really have to make sure it's perfect, and all of the aftermarket panels are not perfect, and they're not OEM. And so it just gives you issues. So a lot of times it's better to try and keep as much OEM metal as possible and just do patches where you have to do patches. So I'm gonna grab this piece right now and cut it out. We're gonna get it just tacked in place probably, and then we're gonna move to the next couple patches. Get those cut out and do the exact same thing, trace them out and weld those in. Okay, I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about what I am doing right here. So I got that patch made already. I also got this patch right here made, and now I'm working on cutting out this big section. You can see I put the tape on it. That way I could kind of see exactly where all the rust was. And now that the outline is pretty much cut out, if we go underneath, you can see the reason it's not coming out is because there are braces. There's a big brace right here, there's another brace there, and another brace there. So what I'm gonna have to do is, you can see there are little tiny spot welds right here. Right here, you can kind of see the impressions in the metal from where they welded. We're actually gonna drill these ones out because we don't wanna damage this panel. We're gonna re-weld those when we install our new piece. And once we get all of those drilled out, then this piece should come off. We can belt sand any of the ones in here just because this piece is garbage and we're replacing it anyway, so it doesn't matter. So let's get this piece torn out. Okay, little change of plans. So I got this piece entirely cut out, and you can see all of the rust underneath. I want to get all of this treated before we put this piece on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this patch made. We're not going to weld it in. It'll just be cut and ready to go in. We're going to cut out this one, cut out this one, and then once both of those are cut out, then we're going to open our rust seal. So the problem with rust seal is once you open it, it just starts to harden. So this is the product I'm going to be using. It is absolutely amazing. It coats amazing. It completely seals the panel, but once you open that can, it pretty much, the top will harden and it makes it unusable. There are some spray cans you can get that actually remove the oxygen from the can, and they work okay. That is why I don't buy these in gallons. I buy them in quarts just because I don't use them that much and they harden. So that's why I'm going to pretty much get everything cut out, everything fit up, all the patches made and ready, and then we're going to rust seal everything at once. That way we can use as much of it. So I'm probably actually gonna jump over to the other quarter as well, because I'm gonna get all of the inner quarter coated with that, so I have a lot of cleaning to do. So I'm probably gonna jump over and get the other one cut off as well. That way we can just coat everything at once and we won't have to open it back up or have to order more for a while. That is pretty much the game plan. So I'm gonna keep cruising and cutting apart the floor, and then probably move to the quarter and get the quarter cut out as well so we can get all of that prepped. Okay, so got all of the patches cut out for the trunk, so we're pretty much ready to start rust sealing in here. Came over to the passenger side and got the inner wheel well piece cut out. It was all rotted right there. So now what I'm gonna do to pretty much finish cutting out all the rust is I'm going to get this terrible quarter patch completely cut out and ready to go, just like we did the other side. Then after that, we're going to rust seal everything, and then we'll start to make our patches. But that is pretty crazy right there. I mean, I've seen some people do some crazy stuff, but this is different right here. So we'll be able to fix this and make it the way that it was OEM.
so dance, dance.
Okay, so the quarter is cut off, and then I also cut off that outer wheel well, so that is pretty much where we're going to patch it. I actually decided I ordered this piece here because it's rotted here, and then it's got a couple of rot pieces here and on the inside. Same thing on the other side, so I ordered 2 of these that we're gonna patch in, and then I also ordered 2 of these because you can see on the bottom it is all rusted right there as well, so we're gonna replace that. So now that I have all the rust cut out, I'm going to prep all of these areas here. That way I can coat it with the rust seal, and then after it's rust sealed, we can start making all of our patches.
Right, so dance, dance.
Okay, got a lot of progress done. Everything is prepped, rust sealed, and then weld through primed and ready to go pretty much. This piece is cut out to fit there. This piece is cut out to fit here. The problem is this trunk floor is actually not the full entire length, so it's a little short. Like this piece right here, for example, I had to build this little piece that will fit on the end of this because it is not long enough. So same thing with this one. I'm gonna have to actually build this one in 3 separate pieces just because I need about 2 more inches on the top of this and then about 1 more inch on the side, which, I mean, it's fine because I have plenty of trunk floor that I can use. It just sucks that I'm gonna have to do it in different pieces. But I'm excited to start on this one because I actually have to build a piece that comes down. That way we can weld the wheel well and everything back to it. So it is gonna sit on the edge of this right here, but you can see that's such a crazy angle. I'm actually gonna have to use a special tool, and it's actually right there. It is called a shrinker stretcher. So I'm gonna be using the shrinking side. That way it will kind of bend the metal to fit this curve. So I'm going to get that little tiny piece welded on the end of this first, and then after that I'm gonna get just a rectangular straight piece cut, and then I will show you how I build it to fit that curve. Okay, well, I got this piece pretty much bent, so you can look at it right there. I had to shrink that whole edge right here, and now it looks super nice. See how it has that big bend right there? So I shrunk that and then welded it. You can see great penetration all the way along the back. Got that corner piece also welded on. So overall, the shrinker stretcher was an absolute good buy, just because, I mean, I'm gonna be able to make a lot of things with this, not just flanges. This is just kind of one of the tools that you really need if you're gonna get into metal fabrication. And I'm pretty glad I bought it because doing this would have been a pain in the butt. I would have had to do a ton of slits and a ton more welding, and this tool just made it pretty simple just to do in one thing. Now this is ready, I'm going to throw it in, and we're pretty much gonna start welding the trunk floor all together. So another day at it. I got that trunk piece welded in last night, so let me show you it. So that is what it looks like right there. It is all the way welded in except on this top corner. I actually have to make a cut up here because you can see there is rust all the way up there. So we're gonna have to cut that out and make a patch there, and then I'll be able to finish welding this up. So I'm gonna do that right now. Once that's done, I'm going to get this second piece welded in right here, and pretty much just keep moving on the trunk and work on this last piece right here. So we still got a lot of work to do, but I'm gonna do my best to try and knock it out tonight, trying to have all of the stuff in the trunk done by this weekend. So let's get started.
so dance, dance.
Okay, so check this out. I made a little bit of progress. So that one is all the way welded in. You can see that one we already finished. I'm waiting for the brake to do that one right there. I started to get this back one tacked into place. And the issue I'm running into right now is there is a little bit of a gap right here. I don't know if you can see it. You could kind of see it right there. So there's just a little bit of a gap all the way around. And really, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. It's aftermarket panel, it's fitment. So what my plan is I'm gonna grab some tack screws and I'm going to screw it into place. That way it pulls it tight and there is no gap. And then after that, I'll be able to fill all the holes. I'll pull the screws back out and then just tack the screw holes closed quick. And that'll pretty much ensure that this is in the right spot and it's also structural and it's sealed up nice. So let's get the screws out, let's get this thing screwed into place and get it welded. Okay, so made some progress on the Cutlass. Let me show you how the floor's coming along. So you can see it looks pretty good. Got it tacked. You see I had to build this piece here. I had to build two pieces right here, this piece here, and then I have to build one more piece. So as soon as I get that piece built, I'll be able to final weld this, and then that will pretty much finish up the entire floor. So it's really coming along. It's about 11 o'clock tonight, so I'm gonna take off and I'm gonna come back tomorrow. I'm gonna finish welding this rear part right here, get it all the way welded up, finished, and then there's a couple small little patches that I gotta do underneath of the trunk. And then that will pretty much be it, other than making that little front piece right there, which I will make hopefully this Saturday. And then I'm waiting for the outer wheel well and the trunk filler panels to come in so I can use those as patch panels. And then, I mean, that will pretty much finish up the rear. This was a lot of work, but really it is coming along. And it's actually pretty cool because sooner than you think, this car is gonna be off the body cart and it's gonna be back on the frame, and we're gonna be doing gaps. And then we're gonna be doing all of our cool finishing metal work, which is probably one of my favorite parts. At least I think it's the most satisfying and it's the most you really can see. So I'm gonna take off for the night and I will see you guys tomorrow night. Okay, back at it working another night on the 71 Cutlass. Got a lot of work to do today. I'm going to actually try and get the trunk floor all the way welded up. So I'm gonna make that last piece right now, and then we are going to final weld this whole thing, and then we're gonna grind down all of our welds. That way it looks really good, and that will pretty much finish up the trunk. So let's get started and get this thing welded up.
So the first thing that I started on was I had to make that last patch for the rear trunk floor. This is probably one of the most difficult patches that I've ever had to do on any car. I don't know about this car. I mean, the Chevelle, we mainly replaced everything. But this one, there's such weird rot in multiple places where it's multiple layers, where you have to cut out the outside layer and then cut out the inside layer and then cut out the layer after that and then build them up one by one. And it just takes a lot of time and it's a lot of work. And you'll actually see a little bit more of that as I work on the inner wheel well rot later in this video. But as for now, I am finishing up the rear trunk floor. So I got that piece cut, tacked into place, and then it was time to start final welding. Now this footage is sped up a lot, and you can see I probably was bent over like this for probably about 2 hours straight. And you don't really realize it when you're working because I feel like you're just distracted. But man, once I finished final welding this trunk, my back was absolutely wrecked. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that I'd been crouched over that long, but man, I was really hurting once I finished. The reason this also took me a long time was because I had to weld multiple pieces together, which also was a lot of work. And then just remember, as you're going, I do about 5 tacks and then I cool the panel, and that's how I continuously weld, I guess you could say, the thin sheet metal. But yeah, I mean, after that, the trunk floor is pretty much finished. I went and got my grinder and started to grind down all of my welds. I had to kind of clean up all my tools first so I didn't get metal shavings everywhere, but I always make a mess when I do this. So I ground down all my welds first, and then also something that you're going to see me do in this video is I actually grind the entire panel that I just welded. I want to get all of that E-coat off because when I acid wash this, the acid etches into the bare metal. So I want everything to be bare metal. So all of that E-coat had to go. And then also what I used is my belt sander to get into all of the tighter areas where I couldn't get my grinder, just to make sure everything was clean, bare metal.
Okay, check that out. Trunk floor is all the way finished up. There, and there. All the welds are ground and it's pretty much good to go. I actually started making those patches up there and I'll show you that footage right now.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about earlier when I mentioned how difficult some of these areas of the Cutlass were to rebuild. This is one of those areas. So I cut out that inner wheel well rot, and then I cut out the floor rot on top of that, and then I also had to cut out that inner brace rot as well. So not only did I had to patch 3 pieces, all 3 of these pieces had extremely hard curves that I had to build. It's actually really nice because I've invested in a lot of tools lately. So my cousin brought over a brake which I was able to use to bend the sheet metal at a 90 degree, and that is what made that flange right there that I could actually weld to on the outside. But then I also had to use the shrinker stretcher. So I got that brace piece in first, got it pretty much bent at a 90 degree, and then shrinked it. That way it gave it that curve to match the rest of the brace in the car. Once I final welded that piece in, I was able to grind the backside of the welds to make them look good. And then I also coated the front part of it with weld through primer so that now when I get the other piece welded on, there will be no rot in between those pieces. It will protect them. So you can see right here, the tool on the right that I just used is called a brake, and then the blue tool on the left is a shrinker, and then the other side of that is a stretcher. So there's actually 2 jaws. The shrinker will grab the metal and pull it together, pretty much shrinking the metal, forcing it to be a smaller part. And then the stretcher will do the exact opposite. It will pull it apart, thinning out the metal, but giving it that curve. Now, you do not need a brake or a shrinker stretcher to be able to make these hard pieces. The way that I would do it if I didn't have these pieces is I would just use my body card frame right there, and I would beat it over with a hammer, and then I would have to cut pie cuts everywhere I wanted to bend the metal or shrink the metal, I guess you could say. So really, you don't need the tools that I have to do this work, but they just make your life so much easier. And since I do this pretty much full-time and full-time on the side and as a hobby on my stuff, I know I'm eventually going to use it, so that is why I invest a lot in my tools. So just to give you guys a price reference, the brake was about $1,200, $1,300 used on Facebook Marketplace, and then that shrinker stretcher tool I got off Eastwood, I think, and it was about $800. And that's exactly why I'm saying you don't necessarily need all of these expensive tools to do the job. They just make your life a lot easier. So if you're looking to do this as a side hustle, then yes, I suggest you invest in the tools. If not, you can just pretty much make it work with what you have. So once I got that rear brace and rear floor patch, I pretty much turned my attention to this inner filler on the passenger side, and this is the last major inner metalwork piece that I have to get done.
So we had to make 2 patches here, and it was pretty cool. Use the brake and the shrinker stretcher to be able to do those curves, and then also patched in this piece here. So got a little bit more work here, but that'll pretty much be it for this video. Got the whole rear pretty much finished up. Metalwork wise, I mean, we still have to do a little bit of work on the quarters and the inner wheel wells, but as far as all of the inner structure, it's pretty much done. So the next one, we're gonna be tackling the outer wheel wells, finishing up all the little patches on the driver's side, as well as a little bit of work on the passenger side, and then getting our quarters welded on, hopefully finishing up the metalwork on this Cutlass. So it has been a lot of work getting the Cutlass to this point, but I'm really happy with how it's coming. I'm excited to get it back on the frame, to start doing all of our gaps, and to start assembling the car in metalwork. So I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.